This is HB Vibes, your home for shocking and emotional war stories. Hit like, smash that subscribe, and let's dive into the drama. The courtroom was silent as the judge raised his gavel, ready to deliver a harsh sentence to the young black man standing before him. But just seconds later, the entire room gasped, because the man everyone thought was a defendant wasn't on trial at all. In fact, he was the lead prosecutor, and what happened next left the judge completely speechless. The courtroom was packed that morning, the wooden benches filled with reporters, families, and curious onlookers. Everyone could sense the tension in the air as Judge Whitmore adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. The case had already drawn significant public attention, an unusual one, involving charges that had confused many. Marcus Hayes, a young black man in his early 30s, stood tall in front of the bench. His sharp black suit contrasted with his calm yet intense eyes. From the outside, he looked like any defendant waiting for a decision that could change his life forever. The murmurs in the crowd only heightened the sense of anticipation. Judge Whitmore was known for being stern, rarely showing sympathy. His reputation for handing down harsh sentences, especially to young men like Marcus, was whispered about in legal circles. As he picked up his gavel, the entire courtroom leaned forward. Marcus Hayes, the judge began, his voice echoing off the wooden walls. Based on the arguments presented and the evidence before this court, he paused for dramatic effect, scanning the crowd as if waiting for everyone to hang on his words. This court sentences you to the maximum penalty allowed under law. Gasps rippled through the audience. Marcus didn't flinch, he didn't argue, he simply stared at the judge with an expression that was neither fear nor defeat, it was something else entirely. Reporters scribbled furiously in their notepads, sensing a headline in the making. What no one knew, not even the judge at that moment, was that the story had just begun. As the echoes of the gavel faded, Marcus reached into his pocket with deliberate calmness. The room tensed, security officers shifting in place, but Marcus moved with such quiet confidence that no one dared intervene. He pulled out a black leather wallet, official, sturdy, and opened it in front of the judge. Inside gleamed a polished gold badge. The room went completely silent. A camera flashed from the gallery, capturing the moment forever. Judge Whitmore's eyes narrowed, his expression faltering for the first time that morning. "I'm not the defendant in this case," Marcus said evenly, his voice carrying across the courtroom. "I'm the lead prosecutor." The words landed like thunder. A hush spread across the benches, followed by shocked whispers. Journalists dropped their pens, unsure if they had heard correctly. Even the clerk froze mid-motion, staring in disbelief. The judge blinked several times, as if trying to piece together what had just happened. He glanced at the badge again, then back at Marcus, who stood resolute and unshaken. "This has to be some kind of mistake," Whitmore muttered under his breath, though loud enough for nearby ears to catch. But Marcus didn't falter. "No mistake, Your Honor. The mistake was assuming my presence here meant I was on trial. The mistake," he paused deliberately, "was not recognizing the person who has spent months leading this case." Gasps erupted again. Some in the crowd began recording with their phones, realizing they were witnessing something historic. Judge Whitmore's face turned pale. He prided himself on control, on maintaining absolute authority in his courtroom, yet here he was, caught off guard, exposed, and speechless. For years, he had carried assumptions into his work, assumptions that influenced the way he ruled. He often justified them as efficiency or maintaining order, but deep down, Marcus's reveal had struck a nerve. He thought back to the moments earlier when he had announced the harsh sentence. In that instant, he had seen only what he assumed Marcus represented, not who he truly was. And now the entire courtroom knew it too. Marcus, on the other hand, remained calm. He didn't smirk or gloat, he simply let the silence do the work. He knew the power of quiet moments. He had faced worse than this in his career, but this was different. It wasn't just about a case anymore. It was about perception, fairness, and truth. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably, realizing the irony of the moment. Reporters were already drafting sensational headlines in their minds. Finally, the judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice noticeably softer, "I was unaware." "That much is clear," Marcus replied evenly. "But perhaps this moment should serve as a reminder of why assumptions can be dangerous in a court meant to represent justice." The weight of his words hung in the air. Before the courtroom drama, Marcus's life had been a long journey of resilience and determination. Raised in a modest neighborhood by a single mother, he had seen firsthand how justice could sometimes be unevenly applied. He had watched neighbors unfairly accused, friends judged before being heard, and families torn apart by legal missteps. From a young age, Marcus vowed to change that. He excelled in school, often being the first to raise his hand in class, eager to challenge assumptions and prove that intelligence had no color. Teachers recognized his brilliance, mentors encouraged his path, and eventually, he earned a scholarship to one of the nation's top law schools. But even there, the journey wasn't easy. He often felt underestimated, his achievements dismissed as luck rather than merit. Yet he pushed forward, fueled by the memory of his mother's sacrifices and the community that believed in him. When Marcus finally became a prosecutor, he carried that determination into every case he led. For him, the courtroom was more than a stage for justice. It was a battlefield against prejudice, bias, and the weight of assumption. And now, standing in front of Judge Whitmore, that entire journey had converged into a single, defining moment. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. For the first time, Judge Whitmore looked at Marcus not as a defendant but as a professional equal. His own words from earlier echoed in his mind, reminding him of how easily he had fallen into bias. Marcus closed his badge and returned it to his pocket. "This case," he said firmly, "is not about me. It's about justice, and justice requires clarity, fairness, and truth, not assumptions." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the court stenographer paused, almost forgetting to type. Judge Whitmore shifted uncomfortably in his chair, visibly wrestling with the lesson unfolding before him. He realized that the courtroom, usually his domain of control, had transformed into a place where he was being silently judged by his peers, the press, and even his own conscience. For once, the gavel felt heavy in his hand. Word of the incident spread quickly beyond the courtroom. News outlets replayed the footage endlessly. The moment Marcus revealed his badge, the stunned look on the judge's face, the hush that fell across the room. Community leaders praised Marcus for his composure and dignity. Social media platforms buzzed with debates about fairness, bias, and the importance of recognizing people beyond appearances. For Judge Whitmore, the experience became a turning point. He began reconsidering how he approached each case, more cautious about rushing to judgment, more aware of the responsibility he carried. He realized that one mistaken perception could damage not just an individual, but the very trust people placed in the justice system. As for Marcus, he continued his work with the same passion, but now with an even stronger platform. His story wasn't just his own anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been underestimated or misjudged. Weeks later, in another high-profile trial, Judge Whitmore presided once again. This time, when Marcus entered the courtroom as the prosecutor, the judge looked at him differently. Not with assumptions, but with respect. When the trial concluded and justice was served fairly, the judge lingered a moment before leaving the bench. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of the past and an unspoken promise for the future. Marcus didn't need an apology. The change in the judge's demeanor was enough. Sometimes redemption doesn't come in words but in actions. The lesson of that day remained etched in everyone who had witnessed it, that justice must be blind, not biased. That titles, appearances, and assumptions should never outweigh truth. And most importantly, that dignity in the face of prejudice has the power to shift hearts, minds, and even entire systems. And so, the story of Marcus Hayes became more than a courtroom drama. It became a testament to resilience, to justice, and to the enduring belief that silence after realization can sometimes speak louder than 1,000 words. If you felt the heartbeat of this story, give it a like, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to HB Vibes, where every story carries a lesson for the soul.